All right, so next we are going to start working on our balance sheet. So let's start in on it. And this first video will be a lot like the first video of the profit and loss. So it's going to be just a lot of formatting and setup. And then in the next video or two after that, we'll get to linking up the formulas. So if you really don't want to watch me kind of set up a spreadsheet, that's fine. The thing you'll want to pay attention to, though, is just the categories that I use if you're following along and trying to replicate the sheet that I'm building. If you're just kind of watching this to get an idea of the flow and the process, then certainly feel free to skip this video and you can just kind of look at how it ends up in the next one. So first we'll name this. I usually name it balance sheet. I try to keep the names somewhat short instead of having long names, just since they will fill up across the bottom. So I try to keep the same, idea and the same look of each sheet. So we're gonna do a little bit of copy and paste here. I'm just gonna copy this over to balance sheet, and then we'll rename this balance sheet. So we'll obviously have the same quarters. Now, the thing with a balance sheet is, unlike a profit and loss where these are individual quarters and you then can have a total for the year, with the balance sheet, it's really kind of a snapshot as of the given date. That's what the total is. So you don't need a total on your balance sheet, a total column, because whatever the ending balance is as of Q4 of year one, year two, etc., is kind of your ending balance. There's no need to kind of tally up the total of all the individual quarters. So I don't want to copy this format exactly. What I do want to copy is just these headers. And we'll move those over to the balance sheet and just kind of stick those here arbitrarily for now. So what we will do a lot of those, just the same kind of, putting totals, gray shading, and whatnot. We will also, we'll kind of bold the main categories and put in our asset categories. So first, obviously, is assets. And I'm just going to put in the main categories first. And I'm just kind of giving myself some space. We might have to add a few rows or take away. Okay. So now that we have these, the next thing will be to determine what our asset categories are. And I'm just going to put this here, and then I'm actually just going to write them in here. And you could have did this over here as well. So rather than indenting stuff, you could have just created a second column that's slightly, offset from the main column. So here, like, for example, I'm going to type cash. So now you have this nice indent, whereas on the P&L, we just kind of use the same column. Either way works, just showing you the different ways. I'm also going to move this like I did over here. I kind of leave myself a placeholder. And I know that these columns are going to be a bit wider just for numbers. I'm just going to do that now. Okay. So we're going to keep it fairly simple. And again, the reason is we just want to show you kind of the methodology to build this. I mean, you can certainly have as many different accounts as you need and different classifications. So we're just going to have, and we're going to make this column bigger. Make sure I spell that correctly. Cash and accounts receivable will be our current assets. So I'm going to put in a current asset line, or total current assets. And if you really want to get fancy, you could write, put in another header like current assets, blah, blah, blah. Since there's so few, I'm trying to keep this somewhat clean. I'm going to move these down just a little bit. Let's bold that. And then for long-term assets, so we need to think about it. We already kind of said we were going to depreciate some assets, if you remember way back here on our assumptions, fixed assets. So fixed assets are usually long-term assets, whatever you want to call them. Again, I'm not going to put in well, actually, let's do that. I keep saying I'm not going to, but let's do it. So this will be current assets. And just to distinguish this, let's capitalize this. Current assets, blah, blah, blah. We'll call it fixed assets. It could be long-term assets. So we don't know what kind of long-term assets we're going to have, but for now, let's just kind of create two categories, computers and office equipment. You can have anything. You might have buildings, etc. Okay. And then I'm going to move these down just a bit more now that it's kind of growing. And then what we'll have is a total assets line. So, and then once we start kind of gray shading and putting in, you know, lines, this will kind of break up a little bit nicer. So then under our liabilities, and let's do this in caps now just to be consistent. And let's just type equity and give myself some space. So you're gonna have same thing. You're gonna have current liabilities and long-term liabilities. You'll have your accounts payable. In this model, I'm just gonna leave it as accounts payable, and then you can certainly then put in a total current liabilities. You can see the overkill a little bit. You know, we have 3 lines for what's essentially one number. We'll bold that. And then you can have long-term liabilities as well. I'm going to put in a placeholder, but I don't believe in our model that we're building we're actually going to have any long-term liabilities. The methodology would obviously be the same. We'll say it's a loan. I'll move this down just a touch, and then total long-term liabilities. Equity section. So this can, again, be as complicated as you want it to be if you want to do like the proper accounting and break out the number of shares versus the additional paid in capital. If you're familiar with accounting, which hopefully you're familiar enough, those terms should be, you know, ring a bell. You could put that in, but for the purposes of this, and again, because we're trying to keep it simple, just trying to give you an idea, and because this is, you know, seemingly a smaller company, they're really not going to be breaking out their share capital and whatnot. We're just going to put it as capital investment. So this will be all the money invested in the company. You're also going to have your retained earnings, which would be from your prior year, and I'm just going to type prior. I'll type PY. If you ever see like PY, CY, it's prior year, current year. You know, CM would be current month, etc. And then your net income, current year. Some, you know, balance sheet will combine these 2 lines. There's lots of different ways of doing it. Let's do equity. Okay. Let's start putting in some formatting, and then we'll be done with this video. So we'll try to do it really quick here. Let's just do a single underline under here. We'll kind of make that the consistent rule for anything. I keep going over just a little bit too far. Anything that's kind of a total of a category within a main category. Okay, and then one more here. Now for the main, we all know like your assets have to equal your liabilities plus your equity. So your total assets is kind of a main number, a main total, if you will. So we're going to double underline that. Let's also shade that one in gray. Same thing down here. Oops, we don't want to do the... Just a point to make, just since I kind of clicked on it. A lot of times when I see other people build models, they'll just click on the row and just hit, you know, gray. Problem is that goes across indefinitely. I think it looks a little bit sloppy. I prefer to actually just highlight the specific cells we're going to be working on. All right, so that's pretty much it. We're going to, I usually like to put in just a line, vertical line here on the left, just to separate, since that is the end of year 1, just to kind of create that visual separation. You see now, so it's quick to see, okay, that's where year 1 ends, and then down just a bit. And then same thing over here, we might as well be consistent. Okay, I would also do some type of formatting up here. I might put, I'm just going to box all of them. So there we go. I think we have our sheet set up now. We have all the categories. We have our totals ready. You know, you could certainly put in some more shading if you want here and whatnot. But what we'll do too is we'll bold across. And I'm not sure if we did that on our P&L. We didn't. Should probably just bold anything that's kind of bold on the, you know, where the name of it is. Should just be bolded across. So we're just doing a lot of formatting here today in this video. And same thing with those total columns, your choice. I'm not going to do it right now, but you could bold all these as well. So back to our balance sheet, we're all set up. We're kind of at the 11-minute mark on this video, so let's end it, and then we'll start building in some formulas in the next video.